It should go without saying that this video contains extreme spoilers for both The Walking Dead TV and comic series. If you don't wish to have any key events of the story spoiled, please click away now and come back once you've caught up. Cheers! When The Walking Dead first started airing back in 2010, I don't think people realised how effectively a zombie drama could sink its teeth into people's attention and, without much effort, become one of the biggest franchises across all mainstream fiction through the 2010s. It became this cultural juggernaut in a way that no other horror or horror-adjacent property ever has. There were books, video and mobile games, merchandise sold in big box stores, official and fan podcasts, everything. I don't think people truly understand how much of a boon The Walking Dead was for the horror genre. It had a knock-on effect that could be felt across the various entertainment mediums, and its influence was monstrous. For instance, without The Walking Dead, we likely wouldn't have gotten The Last of Us on the PS3, or State of Decay on the PC and Xbox store, which, by 2014, State of Decay had already sold in excess of 2 million copies. Both games were inspired by the success of The Walking Dead. Falling Skies on TV, often described as The Walking Dead but with aliens, was also inspired by the success of the first season of The Walking Dead. Z Nation on Sci-Fi, Black Summer on Netflix, the list of media influenced by AMC's zombie drama extends further than you realize, and that's all without considering the influence of Robert Kirkman's original comic series, which did wonders to, ironically, inject some life into the then stagnant horror genre. Can you imagine how different the horror landscape of today would be without the connective tissue and meat provided by both Robert Kirkman and The Walking Dead? Now, to contextualize the success of the series, by around the time the third season of The Walking Dead shambled out on TVs, no watercooler conversation was free from mention of Rick Grimes, Daryl Dixon, who was an original character in the TV series not featured in the comics, or the prison in which the survivors inhabited. The third season averaged over 10 million live viewers, which seemed monstrous at the time, only to be eclipsed again by the fourth and fifth seasons of the series. In fact, the premiere of the fifth season accrued over 17 million live viewers, making it the most watched episode in cable history, a number the series was never able to reproduce. Although Season 6 was still incredibly strong with an average of over 13 million live viewers an episode, contrast this with the 11th and final season, which averaged around 2 million viewers an episode, with the finale only managing to draw in 2.73 million in numbers. It's staggering to try and conceptualize just how hard AMC fumbled the ball with The Walking Dead. To take the most viewed cable drama of all time and excise nearly 12 million viewers from your weekly average is a feat that almost defies understanding and is something that will be discussed and spoken about for many, many more years to come. So that begs the question, where did The Walking Dead go wrong? In today's video, I'm going to be listing a few possible reasons as to why I believe The Walking Dead failed so spectacularly, even if I did watch the entire series and, contrary to popular opinion, I thought Season 9 was probably the strongest in the entire series, but perhaps that's another video for another day. The first season of The Walking Dead is treated like a horror. It's that monumental what if the entire franchise is predicated upon. The sheer terror of seeing the corpses of your loved ones rising from the dead and stumbling around the house in pursuit of you. The consumption of your warm flesh, their only purpose for being, is the kind of thing that was rarely treated with any sort of sincerity outside of George A. Romero's original of the Dead trilogy. Romero's films, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead in particular, are less an emotional take about how characters react in such a situation and more a critique of consumer culture and the decadence and materialism that typified the 1970s, following the naturalism and hippie cultures of the 1960s.
They're still here.
They're after us. They know we're still in here.
They're after the place. They don't know why. They
Just remember that they want to be in here.
What the hell are they?
They're us, that's all.
Although all of Romero's zombie movies do touch on how the characters are reacting to the situation, none of them give us such an intimate and prolonged look into the minds of these characters, and how the end of the world around them stresses and strains their relationships. Although both Day and Dawn do grant us a smaller, feature-length gaze into the lives of individuals stuck in a similar situation. Day of the Dead is an especially harrowing examination of two disparate groups of people, separated by both ideology and lifestyle, stuck underground together in the cramped confines of a missile bunker, with the soldiers running the show and the scientists that are urgently trying to solve this crisis, while also trying to navigate the scorn of the primary antagonist of the film, Captain Rhodes and his blindly obedient soldiers. Outside of The Walking Dead, that's probably the closest we get to the sheer oppressive horror of the psychology of a zombie apocalypse. A world where humans are no longer the dominant species and only exist in tiny scattered pockets. I don't believe there's ever been a piece of zombie media as bleak and depressing as Day of the Dead, and that's saying something. The Walking Dead, though, strikes us with a two-pronged horror attack. One is the living dead, and the other is the human element. Where I believe The Walking Dead went wrong, at least partially, is in that age-old trope of portraying the humans as the real antagonists of the series. It's so obvious, right? The lumbering corpses that seek to feast on your body aren't malicious. There's no thought behind their hunger. It's just that, the basest of drives. Of course they aren't the villains, at least not in the traditional sense, and as the series progresses, they become more of an obstacle, an inconvenience to the survivors, rather than a genuine threat. Occasionally, large groups of zombies are used to kill off side characters so that the audience is reminded that, oh yeah, those zombies are still hungry, but no matter how much they rot and decay into the landscape, they're nothing in comparison to the Saviors or the militant Commonwealth and so on. It's the marauding bands of living, breathing men that ultimately prove to be the true evil in any post-apocalyptic series, and The Walking Dead is no exception.
They're fucking with the wrong people.
Sadly, there's only so many times you can characterize human villains a certain way before you're left telling the same story ad infinitum. Viewership dropped significantly after the Negan and Savior's story arc concluded and led into the Whisperer's arc, which admittedly was handled well enough, and it carried an intrigue nearly unmatched since the beginning of the series. A roaming band of people wearing the skin of slain zombies, hiding inside herds of walkers and whispering to avoid detection. That is horrific in the best possible way, and is something that the series really should have leaned into, rather than cycling around to the regular human tyrants featured in the final Commonwealth arc of the main series. Naturally, it's going to be a step down in intrigue when you go from skin-wearing savages to militant government enforcing a safe city. I'm not saying that particular story can't be interesting or engaging. Anything can be when handled correctly, but in The Walking Dead's case, it was diminishing returns atop of diminishing returns. No wonder the viewership dwindled to 2 million, culminating in a series finale of only 3.1 million viewers.
Brought dinner.
Eventually, as with any fiction-based medium, you run the risk of telling the same story repeatedly if you aren't careful, and it only took showrunners Scott Gimple and Angela Kang, who led the series between season 4 through 8 and 9 through 11 respectively, a few years to convert The Walking Dead from a money-printing machine and one of cable's most successful series in history into just another dejected workplace aside. Wow, that show's still going on? Something that's later spoken about in online discourse using talking points like, remember the downfall of X, or how X failed and lost all its fans, rather than as a single, beloved, overarching story told succinctly to completion. The crazy part of all of this is the fact that The Walking Dead still isn't dead, and has been zombified itself, as the characters have all been split up and given their own shows, which will inevitably lead to the characters all reuniting in a continued series that features this reunification. What I want to know is, has AMC burnt out the last of the goodwill they've earned through the success of The Ones Who Live, Dead City, and the Daryl Dixon series? Reviews were initially positive across the board for each of the spin-offs, but as with the original show, things start repeating and these season-long arcs come across as side quests, stories that are ultimately low stakes and insignificant, taking place away from the main base of operations. In the case of the Rick Grimes story, it makes sense to provide closure as he was taken away on a helicopter after what the other survivors thought was his demise during the middle of the 9th season. Because of course, it's the law of Chekhov's gun. Never introduce a gun in the first act that isn't used by the third. Naturally, it was a colossal failure to whisk away the main character of the entire series and not reveal at least some of the mystery or to touch on it. The Walking Dead survived an awful lot of deaths and misery over its initial 11-season run, including the loss of Carl, who was protagonist B to Rick's A in the comics, but it was never going to survive the loss of its main protagonist, the one character we followed since the inception of the series, and it ultimately didn't. The viewership numbers proved that the loss of Andrew Lincoln's Rick Grimes was a bridge too far for most viewers that weren't utter Walking Dead diehards.
Did you pet a little pussy like a lady? I'm just screwing around, man. A baseball bat doesn't have a pussy. Get the hell out.
It's unfortunate then that The Walking Dead was never going to truly appeal to casual fans, nor to the original fans, because by following the graphic novel series exactly, you run the risk of alienating the casual fans, negating a lot of the success garnered by trimming the fat and sanding down some of the rougher edges. For example, Laurie's comic death being significantly more brutal. But by changing it too much, you alienate the hardcore fans, the original fans of the property. Instead, what we got was a series that couldn't commit to either and ultimately drove away both, as evidenced by the mammoth decline in viewership post-season 9. Furthermore, for as novel as killing off main characters can be, and it adding an element of danger and excitement to whatever series is willing to commit to such a narrative device, once you've killed too many main characters, or once you've killed off the wrong character, like Glenn, and the absolute backlash against it, how could you ever expect fans to connect, to further invest in your media, because there's always a sword above everyone's head?
I got an idea. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
So, what of the legacy of The Walking Dead? If you're interested in seeing the characters stretch out beyond Georgia, Virginia, and DC, then the spin-off series may interest you. However, do keep in mind that in order to try and superglue the broken pieces of the viewership back together, they've added new zombie variants, which for myself is sacrilegious, and taken several of the characters internationally to try and drum up some new intrigue. They're okay, and the actors do their best with the abysmal writing they're given. Dead City in particular is egregious for the quality of the writing. Even at its best, the main Walking Dead series was never given a writing team capable of balancing the juxtaposition of human drama with the horror of a zombie apocalypse, something that only George A. Romero has ever truly successfully wrestled with. Although the creator of the Walking Dead comics, Robert Kirkman, is the closest anyone has ever gotten, and in some respects was able to contend with Romero himself, as reading about Rick slowly grapple with the new state of the world and devolving with it over nearly 200 issues of the comic was something else entirely. Personally, I think the series will continue faltering and flailing until the inevitable occurs. Everyone is brought back for a continuation series which, after massive hype, will quickly fade away and out of the forefront of the public's mind. It's truly a shame too, because this franchise in particular is rife with possibilities, and if the first 3 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead taught us anything, it's that if the writers, despite their faults and flaws, give us characters to invest in, it's only going to take those very same writers fumbling the ball to ruin it for everyone. Well, if you've gotten to this point in the video, it means an awful lot to me. I worked on the essay for this one for quite a while. It went through a couple of different phases of where I wanted to take it, and I don't know, there was enough left over that maybe I could make another video out of it, just on the stuff that I had left over. But yeah, it means a lot to me if you got to this point. It means a lot to me that you clicked on the video at all. So, if you liked it, consider dropping a comment and a like on the video. It actually does help out. And if you like the vibe here, do consider dropping a sub as well, because we do horror watch parties here. I watch retro movies with my friends over on Twitch, and that's pretty much all I've really been streaming nowadays. And I also do video essay content like this. So again, if you like what you saw, you know, do the usual stuff. And if you don't, that's okay too. So my name is Marcel from Aussie Horror, and thank you everyone for watching.